All right, we're back. We have a singular topic. We might stray afterwards, I guess, but Paul had something on the agenda, so we're getting to it. So Paul set up this clip, or the video entirely, I guess, because it's multiple clips in the video that we'll cover.
Yeah, I just stumbled upon this white kid in black colleges, which is not foreign to me, although I did learn a lot of things that I did not know about HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. Um, but yeah, I just thought it was an interesting video, especially from the dominant perspective, right? And in this situation, the dominant perspective is quote unquote people of color, black people, right?
When you say dominant perspective, you just mean like majority perspective in terms of a minority in the atmosphere, or what do you mean there?
Yeah, dominant being that as it pertains to HBCUs, black people are dominant
Okay, cool. All right, so first clip.
because of their majority. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which, and FYI, I've always had a problem with the word minority when it pertains to a person, right? Like, just because you're Native American, like calling yourself a minority, just it, I don't know. It's always just rubbed me the wrong way. Calling a person a minority, right? Because I think it has, although from a numerical standpoint, right, that's fine, but that's not really what you're trying to say, right? You're saying that actually I think that's what people are trying to say, but when it comes to that, like what context would require or would even facilitate us using that and it being a good descriptor other than saying non-white?
Well, and again, going back to the way you set it up, now you're talking about a different context. You're talking about the population of a country like America, where a majority is white and minority would mean non-white. But that's a great point because
It doesn't
does it?
say what you are, it just says
Yeah,
you're not white.
yeah. It literally just tells you that you belong to a group that does not make up the majority of the larger group, and it is weird as a descriptor. Yeah.
I would say useless, but okay.
All right. So
Unless that's all you care about. Are you white or non-white? Which, in truth, that is really what people cared about, right? Like from a census standpoint, I think just and just from a cultural standpoint, they just cared: are you white or not? Because if you're not white, then just go over there and do what you people do. But anyway, yeah. So I just thought this video was very interesting. I had a whole bunch of things that I wanted to say about it.
yeah, so let's jump in. So first clip, we're at a minute 32 in, and I guess sorry, let's set this up. So this is a kid who applied and is now attending, or at the time was attending Morehouse, and he's being interviewed by Vice, and so the interviewer is sitting with him in the dorm room, and he says, "Do you feel like you belong here?" And you had a couple responses to that.
Well, just that's a good question. I don't know. I guess that is a seminal question, and then, but he didn't really answer it. Um, and obviously, guys, you can watch the entire video. We'll leave a link below. But the truth of the matter is, like, he didn't really answer it. He said something to the effect of, "If I earn it," and I'm like, "Well, didn't you already earn it by getting accepted? Like you belong somewhere if they hire you, right? If they hire you, they accept you, that means you belong. Now, then subsequently, you need to take advantage of that opportunity, but why wouldn't you belong?" And obviously, he's answering the question, or he's really actually avoiding the question, I think, of the color of his skin and whether or not anybody with his skin color should be there. And if he understood the question to be that, he should have answered it, but he didn't, which I think is a recurring theme of somebody who is a minority not feeling comfortable asserting or even conducting themselves the way the other people conduct themselves whoever those other people are, right? The dominant or majorities.
Yeah, and you went almost in a, and I want to be careful about, it's more than semantics to me here, right? You said, do you belong here? But the question was literally, do you feel like you really belong here? And to your point, you belong at a university if you're accepted, plain and simple. But feeling like you belong as a part of the culture of the university among everyone else, I do think that's probably different. And I agree with you, though. He gives kind of a weak or soft-hearted answer, and I don't know what else he could have said, but yeah, he just said, as long as I'm putting in the work, then it's as simple as that. I belong here.
Yeah, and I actually made the note that he said that he didn't apply to any other school, not one other school,
Right, right.
which is dumb and crazy to be honest. Like nobody does that, right? Unless your father went to Harvard and his father went to Harvard and his father's father went to Harvard and they went to Harvard. And if you got accepted to Yale, they would kick you in the teeth, right? I get that, but no other school ever?
I mean, maybe that's just how passionate he felt about it. Now, had he not been
What are you
accepted,
proving? Yeah, what are you proving? Like,
no,
come on, man. There is no
I get
passion.
you. I get
That's
you.
just stupid. Like passion is fine, but that's just stupid from a standpoint of are you trying to go to college or not? Because what if Morehouse says no?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess at that point you could apply, but it's late, and but you'd start a semester late. I don't know how that works, right? I don't remember college
Okay,
admissions.
you know what? Nobody needs your fucking like dumbass rationalizations, bro. Like you wouldn't talk to your kids like that. Oh well, that's no big deal. You just lose 6 months. What's the big deal? You experience in life. You can go work at fucking Marshalls or something. Bro,
But
stop. Like
to be
it's
honest,
just dumb.
how many schools did you apply to?
Oh, I didn't have. You know my. I don't know if you know my situation, but I didn't have to
You didn't
really
have to.
apply to.
Okay.
I didn't because I was getting a scholarship. But by the end of my junior year, I knew that I could go to any number of schools that I wanted to go to. So it was a formality, to be totally honest.
Okay. Had you not, you're saying you definitely would have had at least a handful of schools that you would have
Okay,
applied
I
to.
would apply to shit. I mean, it costs money, right? Probably 50, $100 back then, maybe $50. So unless my family was like, okay, 10 is enough, I would have applied to a shit ton of schools because I would have applied to schools where it's like a dream deal, where it's maybe they just like
Yeah.
I was a very good student. I wasn't like nationally ranked any crazy like that, but for where I was coming from and what my environment was, I was a very good student. Probably like 3.5 or whatever you want to call it. So I would have tried to get into top notch schools ever, and then I would have go through a couple of mediums in there, assuming that I would definitely get into the mediums.
Because I can tell you that I don't remember applying to more than 2 schools. So for me, it's not outlandish that someone might be like, look, I can only think of this one, and if not, whatever. And, it's a failure to plan, to your point. Life smacks you in the face, you don't get accepted, then what are you going to do? You do have to deal with things like, all right, am I just going to try to get in late, or am I going to go somewhere else? And am I just going to go to community college? Am I going to get a job? But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
no, it's
what I didn't
ridiculous to
really,
you. It's what I'm trying to make clear. It's ridiculous to you because given the opportunity, you would apply in your
no,
worst.
no, no. It has nothing to do with me, right? It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the fact that you're trying to get into college. There is a chance somebody could say no. So you putting one fucking opportunity out there is just dumb. Whether you're trying to get into college or you're trying to get a job. I only want to work for Google. So I'm only going to apply to Google. But my rent's due. You're an idiot.
Agreed about the job, but rent's not due when you're trying to go to college.
Excellent, Abdul.
All right,
Like
moving on.
you act like decisions just don't have any repercussions. Like, okay, who cares if it goes left? Like, if that was the case, you would never really do anything with any type of urgency
Bro,
or with any type of rationale.
there's
And
people that backpack through Europe for a year or 3. Like, it's not the end of the world, is my point. And you're
no,
taking it super seriously. I get that. I think it's probably
no, no,
better.
but wait,
It,
wait, but this guy, I'm not trying to impose. That's why I said it's not really about what I would have done. I'm just trying to follow, and he does talk about it in the video, guys, that, he's passionate about education. He's obviously passionate about community and growing and all that good stuff. Like, he's not a backpacker through Europe kind of guy, right? He's I really want to go to the school. And you said he's passionate about that. But if that's the case, if you're passionate about that, and I'm assuming he's from Georgia. I don't think I remember if they even said if he's from Georgia,
He
but
said he's a Celtics fan, and I didn't. They don't say he's from the Northeast or from
that's
Boston.
weird. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you apply to Morehouse, fucking A&T, Howard, and Jacksonville State or some shit? Like, that wouldn't be weird, right? Even if you love Morehouse, but obviously you want to go to a historically black college or university. Apply to a couple of those things.
Yeah, you're right. It was because he does touch on the fact that there's a very quick clip where he says, as a young kid, I was in, I guess, a majority black community. And there's a shot of him in like kindergarten or elementary school where it's mostly black students around him. And then he's contrasting that to when I went into high school, I was in a more affluent white community, and I saw the difference between those. And I think he says something about, I just felt more aligned with being around black people. And so maybe that was a part of it. What I was going to say was, you brought up the fact that he could also have applied to other HBCUs. At the same time, as much as he made that connection to say, I just felt more connected to black people in the community than I did to, whatever, the white kids I was hanging out with when I was in high school. He does specifically say, when I was a freshman, I was introduced to a Morehouse man, and that had an impact on him. So I don't know, maybe it was just this love affair with Morehouse in particular.
Right. I'm not condemning him as a person because he loves Morehouse. I'm saying that anybody who puts all their eggs in one basket is a little bit on the retarded side when it comes to something that's important to you. It is important to him to get a college degree and to move on and do positive things with his life. So if Morehouse said no, then delaying that, you're right, it's not the end of the world. But that's like saying, oh, well, if I buy the wrong type of wood, I'll just take it back. No big deal. Like, just personally, I hate anybody who makes it seem like, well, if I make mistakes, no big deal. I'll just do it over. Like, get away from me. You're a weirdo. Like, who the fuck leaves themselves open to things that they could preemptively avoid? That's scary to me. That's scary weird.
All right. Yeah, I think that's just a difference in belief system, but that's fine. I hear your point. All right. Your next timestamp is actually earlier in the video. And you said, how would black students feel to hear white students say, this is a sacred space for white students? So this was early in the video. They actually go into this scene later, but in the beginning of the video, there's a montage where they're talking to a group of black students, and one of them says, this is a sacred space for black people, black students. And it looks like in this note, you're saying, how would it feel if that was done the other way?
I think we know how they would feel. That's why they created that space.
I felt that through that entire scene. So we should timestamp that montage scene eventually. Sorry, not the montage, but the actual interview. Because the interviewer from Vice leads that segment with, I want your genuine, your feelings or your reaction to the fact that we're covering life at a historically black college or university, and what we're showcasing is someone who's actually not black, right? Not non-traditional student at Morehouse. And so, yeah, you had these reactions, and a lot of it, I felt exactly what you wrote in the note here. It is weird because I think they're coming from the right place. As you said, right, the whole reason the university was created was because it was exclusionary. They make that point explicitly, but you listen to some of the words, and you could do that with a number of the things that were said in there, where if you just change it around, it would sound really weird, making that from the white perspective.
I don't think it sounds weird from the white perspective. It sounds weird from any perspective. There's a difference between creating a space where a certain group that has been traditionally marginalized can flourish and exercise their rights versus punishing unwillful um components, not excuse me, not participants, unwillful. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess residents, for lack of a better word, like somebody who's white who wasn't trying to beat up and disenfranchise black people. Like, like you don't need to punish white people here. You can just elevate black people here. The real point of the school was not to punish white people. At least I don't think it was. I looked it up. It didn't say down with Whitey.
It's not in the charter.
It's not in the chart. Down with Whitey is not in the chart. But yeah, see, and once again, these are kids, right? Let's always, and I just want to make
Yes.
that.
Yeah, we made that point in an earlier video, right? Oh, the
It may not even been in the video. I think it might have been just in the conversation I didn't get to. I'm
no,
not sure.
but it definitely was in the talk we had about Leah Thomas and the UK
Gotcha.
swim team, right? Because
You are correct.
same thing, right? These are kids that are 18 to 22 years old. They are adults in society's eyes, but yeah, very, very young. And yeah, you change a lot, I think, through college and then obviously well after that.
Whether you change a lot is irrelevant. The truth of the matter is they don't have a shit ton of experience dealing with a lot of different people, and a lot of their environments have been manicured. As you are controlled by your parents when you're at home to a decent extent. You're controlled by the rules and regulations of the high school. Like you can't drive anywhere, you can't live anywhere, you can't listen to whatever music, you can't date whoever you want, maybe you can't be whoever you want from a religious or a sexual standpoint. So I get it, right? You may be a little bit, what am I looking for? Sheltered, for lack of a better word, from your perspectives and whatever. But at the same time, you're still a person in this society, and so as much as I'm going to respect you as a person in society, I'm going to, have certain expectations based on where you are in that society. And as a college student, I'm assuming you value knowledge and you value some level of human interaction and activity because that's your plan is to be a part of a society. I'm gonna add, because I'm not gonna totally ignore if an 8-year-old is a racist bastard, right? Like, obviously, you're not gonna throw that person in jail or beat them up, but you're still gonna be very firm with understanding how they got there and explaining to them that it's unreasonable and or unacceptable for them to hold that feeling and why. So as it pertains to these 18-year-old kids, as much as I understand that, maybe they don't have a ton of information, the way I judge people in these situations is, but are you open to having a conversation? You can have a strong opinion. Are you open to evaluating new and different information or information that maybe you've seen, but are you open to your perspective being critiqued? And this video, this expose does not give, any avenue for that, right? It's 25 minutes and it's mostly about this guy, Tiago. So it doesn't really go into people's rationales too tough. Although that one professor, that female professor, I think she kind of, had a really good back and forth where you really kind of saw her perspective. But anyway, back to the kids and them feeling comfortable trying to disenfranchise Tiago because of what Tiago's grandparents or great grandparents did. I think that's just like a really lazy thing to do or say.
Well, I think they made a great point in another montage that followed that, either right after, and again, we'll try to timestamp, but either right after or soon after, where it seems like where they were going was is this a slippery slope of, actually they end it in, I forget if the guy's name, I don't know if he's a professor or just an older student or an alumnus, but he
The
was
guy with
sitting,
the hat.
yes, right, he's sitting at the kind of the bottom of the auditorium they're in, like
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you guys are missing the point. And there have always been white students. And he specifically says there was a guy who we called White Mike.
Mike, yeah.
And in the montage that follows, one of the people makes the point that there might be a tipping point where are 10 white students at Morehouse going to change the culture? No. But would 100? They might. And so is some of that the fear that they might turn into what, they cited a couple other, what was it? Bluefield State
No,
and
bro, there are a number. There are a number of HBCUs that have a significant white population, like in the 30s, and then there are a few that are like in the 70s or 80s, bro.
yeah, and he cited those, or Vice cited those too, because they were less than 10% black students. So yeah, is that something to fear, right? And you make this point in your notes. Does historically black mean no whites allowed?
Well, yeah. So let's just finish up on how would black students feel to hear white students like you didn't. I mean, you didn't touch on that. Is that what they're doing just in that little clip, right? Because we're gonna touch on, expounding upon that. But in that little clip of the person saying, "Yo, nah, this is a place for black people. This is where black people should be."
I get the feeling, but yeah, it's just odd to, like, should spaces be exclusionary at all? And there's always the other side of it where, I mean, and they asked this kid, right? We led with that. Why would, if there's a only racking our brains club, why would anyone want to join if they're not members of racking our brains, right? Or whatever it is.
Lefties only, left-handed. Well,
yeah, right.
You and I both happen to be left-handed, but
and so you're right-handed and you want to join this left-handed only club. Like, why? There's that question. Yeah, I guess that's a really, I don't know that I'm equipped to have that conversation. It's a really deep philosophical question about what type of exclusion is okay. Left-handed only, I don't know, maybe you're doing activities that I can't even think of any. There probably aren't any that only left-handed people can do. But I guess there could be innocent in groups or non-malicious. But yeah, I think there is just an unfortunate history of most exclusion, like really nationalistic countries. It is about supremacy. It is about, we value what we have more than what anyone else has, and purity. So yeah, I think it is a very fine line to dance on. So it's completely odd to say, yeah, I'd rather someone that's not like us not be here.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but let's talk about the why part, right? Like if you and I started a club, we probably wouldn't want people who hate left-handed people in that club, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's okay to exclude people who don't like us. So, like you said, well, exclusionary, like the why matters. Who and what are you excluding and why? Because if you're excluding people who hate you, that's okay. But if you're excluding people who don't hate you, who like you, who want to do the fucking things that you're doing, that's weird. What's the point of a club where people who want to do what you do, i.e., I don't know, badminton, they're passionate about badminton. They're like, they were the best in their state. Why can't they come play? Oh, because you're right-handed. Or because you're taller than 5'10" or some shit. Like, that's the important part, not, oh, it's exclusionary bad. Exclusionary is good. We exclude people from society when they break the laws. Like, exclusion, there's nothing wrong with excluding people or prohibiting people or, whatever. It's the why that's important. And I think, that's the important part. Is why are they excluding them? And if you're just excluding somebody because of their skin color, then you must be like for any type of consistency. That's all, and that's kind of a big part of what I ask for from people. just be intellectually honest and consistent. Like, if you're gonna exclude people because that, then you can't be mad at them at excluding you, because they're doing it for the same reason. Like, you think you're okay. See, the whole victim thing is, well, we're a victim of that, so we have the right to do this. I mean, if you want to go that route, but who gives a fuck? And who is this arbiter that you're appealing to say, well, we're gonna roll by different rules because we've been aggrieved?
All right, we're well into this recording, so I want to keep it moving.
Yes.
You have a bunch of other timestamps here, but I'm going to jump ahead because you touched on it. So there was this professor who was an alumna of Howard. Her name was Robin Marcus, I think.
Did you make that note? I don't know if I made that note.
Well, you timestamp 1530 from your notes. It looks like you are talking about her. Legacy is palpable. It was carved out for you. At least for 4 years, you don't have to worry about racism. And she talks about the host or the interviewer from Vice says, don't you feel like it's a level of reverse racism, or however he phrases it exactly? She gets really defensive. She's like, I don't even want to address that term. That term's ridiculous to me.
I don't think defensive is the right word. She was offended. I think she was offended by it. But go ahead.
Okay. But
because she thinks that he's smart enough to know that that's bullshit, and she thinks it's bullshit. So she's like, why are you even asking that? Bullshit. But go ahead.
Well, go ahead. What are your other points on the way she reacted or the things that she has said?
I think it's similar to where we just came from. Like, those students feeling like, well, first of all, she did make the comments like, white people cannot understand blackness or black history. Like, she said that. She said, no, yeah, I mean, something about this soil, this land, this place was made for us and not for them. So when they come here, they can't understand what was done for these people. And I'm like, okay, but does every black student, do you hook up every black student to some type of polygraph machine to make sure that they emotionally and psychologically feel the same way you do? No. You're just making that the fuck up because it's a good rationale to other these people. And once again, I guess you could try to prove somehow through years of, investigation that, oh no, there's a group of KKK members who are sending the best and brightest white students to pretend to love black culture, to infiltrate black universities, to destroy them from within. I guess that could be a possibility. But are you really saying that there can't be a white person who genuinely likes what you're calling black culture? You fucking idiot. Right? Because then you have to be then saying that there's such a big difference between black people and white people, I guess, based on skin color, which is what we'd have to tackle that fucking pink gorilla elephant thing. But like, what are you really saying? Or are you just saying things out of the passion of, I hate what white people did to us, so I'm fucking angry and I just want to lash out at white people?
And I think that's a big part of it, right? It is very much what the students were going through in that conversation in the auditorium. It was just, why can't this be ours? Like, this is just our thing. We don't really want to, I don't think anyone really wants to exclude, but it's like, damn it, you could do this anywhere else, right? The one girl said, you can learn about what it is to be a black person in an African-American diaspora class. You don't have to attend Morehouse or any other HBCU. Yeah, I was more struck by the defensiveness about what I want to address is the term reverse racism. Can we fucking bury this thing?
First thing, get rid of the reverse word, right?
That is it. That's not the first thing. That's the only thing. How the hell? Because what you're framing when you create this term, reverse racism, is there's a racism.
There's an original vector. There's an original.
Yeah,
vector.
Right. The vector, the forward, the almost implying that that's the correct racism. Is that
the first type of racism that ever existed was, Europeans against people from Africa.
And it may be probably is the most prevalent type of racism, right? White or lighter skinned people being racist against those of darker skin, whether from Africa or elsewhere, right?
Right.
But the point is, it's racism, period, right? And even if there is a less popular racism, just because the target of that racism might be light skinned people, it doesn't make it reverse. You're just saying, like, okay, this is the less common racism, but
You don't even have to say
reverse,
that. You say racist against light skinned people, or racist
period. That
against
is
white
it.
people, or
Yes.
like that's what I'm saying. Like almost all of this is a mental laziness and intellectual, not mental, intellectual laziness or verbal laziness, where people, and I'm not talking about in this particular video, but just in general, that term is for the mentally lazy, right? For the people who don't have the ability to do that 5-second exercise that you just did of, guess what? Racism doesn't have a vector, right? Like it's just what one people are doing against another people. At one point, not in this video, but we'll talk about the power structure in racism. Some people think that you can't be racist if you don't have power. That means you're an idiot because, like, poor people in Kentucky, whether they're white or black, like poor people can be racist. That means you're saying poor people can't be racist.
Exactly.
Or what they'll say is, well, that poor white person could be racist because they have the backing of the Waltons from Walmart and Jeff Bezos and George Soros. None of those people want anything to do with those monkeys in Kentucky. So just stop it. Like, you're not making any sense. Just think things through and let's try to have a real conversation. But anyway, so yeah, that woman I think was just a bad actor. Not actor. She's not an actor, as in she's not being genuine. I think she's being 100% genuine, but it's disgusting and scary to me. Right? She's what I would assume is a highly educated person who understands the damage and the negativity that comes from judging people because of their skin color. And that's the irony here, is that, and you actually touched on it, anybody who is afraid of white people coming into an HBCU and changing or destroying the culture is admitting that black people cannot maintain their own culture. This is a fucking HBCU. Who teaches here?
Yeah.
And what are you teaching? Are you teaching white supremacy? Are you teaching, the same thing that Ohio State is teaching in the exact same way? Because if that's the case, what the fuck is the point of having an HBCU? Unless you're not trying to make sure that every student who comes in there has a objective perspective on the history of this world, of this country, of people, of all peoples, right? So if you say that you're creating a black community and a black culture that is beautiful and powerful and progressive, why wouldn't you want white people to come in there and be exposed to it? People who want to be fucking exposed to it. Or people who may not even, they want to be exposed to it and don't realize that maybe they're cool with being indoctrinated, if you want to call it that. Like, you're going to get white people walking out of that building after 4 years, and I don't particularly value this, but who are going to be they're going to walk around with brown shade, not rose-colored glasses, but black-colored glasses, right? They're going to be walking out of there saying, you know what? Black is beautiful, and black girl power, black girl magic, and all that other good stuff. Black Lives Matter. They're gonna, like, most of them are going to do that. Why wouldn't you want that? Why would you tell a white person, go learn about me from a fucking book? Well, who wrote the book? Because if a black person wrote the book, guess what? We've got black authors and professors right here who could give you that information directly. What? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You're just being a child for no real reason. Unless once again, in fairness to the piece and to these people, we don't get into their rationale. They don't just say why, which I hate that, right? Like, whenever there's almost never a good way to ask just one question and move on and really feel thorough on that situation, unless you say, hey, do you hate Jews? Yes. Okay, I'm going. Right? Because
There's nothing else you could say.
There's no rationale for you to hate Jews. Now, do you hate George Soros? Yes. Why? There might be a good reason to hate George Soros, but it can't be because he is Jewish. Whatever. But anyway, so my only point is they didn't go into depth with this situation, but although maybe there's something that one of them could have said or in a deep conversation that would let me say, oh, okay, if that is your purpose, if that is your issue, then that's a good point, and maybe we should have exclusionary environments just for black people. Maybe. I could be missing something, but I haven't heard anybody say it. Not just in this piece, but in any piece. I haven't heard anybody come through with a really good rationale for there should be black only places, especially when black people own it, right? Black people own Morehouse. Black people run Morehouse.
And
What else do you need other than to be like that's like I don't know, like at what point in time would what if the government was all black? What if all 100 senators and the president was black and the vice president was black and everybody in the judiciary was black and the executive branch was black? You would still be worried about white people coming in this country fucking it up?
I
Like
think
if
they
you
use the phrase safe space, and maybe this is the original safe space, right, for a really marginalized people in this country. And they're imagining a world where, yeah, if it goes away, right, if there's no such thing as all black colleges anymore,
okay, and I apologize. So real quickly, can you please define what that means to you? Right? Because when you say
safe
all black
space.
college, no, all black college.
Oh,
Like what does all black college mean to you? Does it because where does that end? Right? That is one of the notes that I made, and I know we're kind of jumping around now, but where does that end? What is
let's
all
yeah.
black mean? Right? So are we talking about the like is there some type of test of what your skin looks like? Or what your last name is? Or none of this makes any fucking sense, bro. Like actually, that is the fucking foundational question to this entire exercise to me. Who is allowed to come to this safe space? Because if you say black kids, then you have to define what black kids is, what blackness is. So go ahead, Abdul.
But the thing is,
Define blackness, Abdul.
it's not up to me. It's not up to me, right?
Why
It
not?
is up to the administration at Morehouse.
Have they done that?
I don't know. To
Let,
your point, that is a great question, but
let's get it in. What is
I,
an HBCU? I actually looked this up, right? Any, first of all, this is what I love about black history and black culture. It's always legitimized by some Caucasian, act. But anyway, the Higher Education Act of 1965, as amended, defines an HBCU as any historically black college. What the fuck does that mean? Which I know what that means, but it has such a great definition of it. When they say historically black college, they're talking about the colleges that were created in the late 1800s and early 1900s by black people when you could not go to a white institution, right? You just couldn't. Right?
yeah, I think it's a little flippant to say what the fuck does that mean. I think you're tying it to what I know you have a strong opinion about in race being a social construct and very difficult to define. As you put me on the spot, like there's no way I'd give you an adequate definition of what is a black person and what is a white person, other than the really stupid. You know it when you see it, right? The what is that? The porn from the Supreme Court decision. I know pornography when I see it, right?
You've
I
been
wouldn't be able to define it, but I know it when I see it. So, but when you say, there was a time in the late 1800s and the early 1900s where black students could not attend white universities, therefore these colleges were created. I think that's a fair enough definition to say, okay, we know what is then a historically black college or university.
Right, and I mean that's what I was saying. So you're right. Maybe I was correcting myself as I started to say that, and then you stole my thunder and tried to make it seem like you were correcting me.
I just want to be careful, but yeah, because like,
Well, let me finish. Right, I'm not finished reading.
go on.
Rude. Anyway, any historically black, I'm going to read it straight, and then we can play it on. Any historically black college or university that was established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of black Americans, and that is accredited by a nationally recognized accrediting agency or association determined by the Secretary of Education to be a reliable authority as to the quality of training offered or is, according to such an agency or association, making reasonable progress toward accreditation. So that's what an HBCU's CU is technically from the standpoint of the Department of Education, which is the governing body to, offer, schools or whatever. Any school opened before 1964, because before 1964, all other institutions could say, you're black, can't come here. I don't care how smart you are, how much money you have, just don't come, right? And in 1964, 1965, that changed with integration and everything. But a HBCU was any school that was, any college that was open before that. Because if you were open and you were taking black kids, you were a historically black college or university.
Okay.
Right, cool. But I don't know if that answers the Morehouse question of who do you. Well, first of all, bad question, because as the administrative person in this video said, hey, I was here 15 years ago and we had white kids there then. Oh, you know what? Let's just Google that.
He says white Mike. It really struck me because, like, was it singular? Was he saying, like, I knew the one student on campus at the time I was there and he was white Mike?
Who was the first white student at a HBCU? On May 1st, 1867, Howard University opened with 5 white female students, daughters of 2 of the founders. That's it. 1867. That's how Howard University started. So who is allowed to go to these colleges? Who's allowed to go? Because if you're saying black people, where does it end? Like, so no Hispanics, right? No Asians, no Eskimos, no Native Americans. Probably not. Like, they're probably more than comfortable including those people because they're non-white. So stop saying this is a black university and just say it's a non-white university. I'm sorry, I'm not saying to say that, right? Because the truth of the matter is it's a historically black college or university, and it was founded for a purpose, right? To make sure that black students had a place to go to be educated. And that is not going to change by allowing white kids to come here. Because the truth of the fucking matter is that they're not turning away black kids. Right? They're not saying, hey, black guy, sorry, can't go here because we already have too many people and 30% of them are white. The reason Morehouse is so accepting of white kids is because they don't have enough fucking students at all.
Well, I mean, what is the percentage? Did you take that down? Because Tiago, the kid in the video, said...
Oh, no, he said it's 5 white people at a month.
He said 3. Him and a guy in ROTC and a Japanese exchange student.
I thought he said 5, but okay. Worst case scenario is 5, and it's like 2,000 kids there.
And I guess it's got to be difficult, though, those 2 other schools that were cited, where you think, I have a potential future where Morehouse becomes another HBCU, where I'm only 10% of the population, I'm only 10% of the student body. And maybe it's a little...
Wait, stop. I'm sorry, go ahead, I apologize.
Maybe it's a little early to react that way, if it's literally 3 non-black students at Morehouse.
No. Okay, but I think I know you well enough to understand that you're being a little bit ridiculous, even as it pertains to your own kind of modus operandi. You would always ask why, right? You would never look at a statistic and say, oh, that statistic says X, Y, and Z. Why is that 90% of these kids are white? Because they hate blacks now? No, that's not the fucking case.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point. Again, because a lot of the feeling in that room, in that auditorium, was this is our safe space. We feel free to be black. And that's tied into, there is this history, there's this culture. The one student says, the most black doctors come out of Morehouse. Most of some other profession, I forget at the moment, right? So there is this pride, but there's also just this, we feel free to be black here, whatever that means to these students. And imagining, I'm trying to imagine what they're imagining, but if they're imagining a world where Morehouse becomes Bluefield State and now the black student population is only 10% of the student body, you're just everywhere else in America.
No, you're not, because the fucking administration is black and they're not teaching what they're fucking teaching at Yale and Harvard. Or if they are, then it's your fucking fault. This is not white people imposing anything on black people. This is black people not being able to cultivate an environment that is self sustaining. The reason that Bloomfield State is all white now is because there are no fucking black kids who are trying to go there to the point where they can sustain the university economically, which is why Morehouse is doing what they're doing, because they need economics. Not they need white money, they need any money. And if there are more black kids who are breaking down the door to try to go to Morehouse, Morehouse wouldn't be having this fucking conversation, because it wouldn't be 2003 or to 2005, whatever that number is. It would be 10,000 black kids and 10 white kids. I guarantee you, I don't guarantee you, more than likely, they wouldn't have a fucking problem with that. The problem is there aren't enough black kids to make them feel comfortable that it's not going to happen at Bloomfield State. But it's not happening at Bloomfield State because white people are conniving and manipulating the situation. It's just the economics of the situation to some extent. And it's really just the reality of the situation where, bro, black people are not going to black schools. Black people, brilliant black people, are going to Ohio State and Minnesota State and University of Oregon and USC and Columbia and Yale. I can fucking name a million other schools, bro. This is not a, oh my God, white people are destroying our safe space. No, black people are not cultivating a safe space. Be mad at the black people who are not coming here, who are going to white schools. Have that fucking conversation first. Ask yourself why black people are not going to Morehouse and Spelman and A&T and Howard. Ask that question first. Then ask the question, why the fuck white people are coming here? And don't even ask that question. Ask the administration why they're so eager to have white people come the fuck up in Morehouse. Because they can't pay the fucking bills. Or they're paying the bills, but they can't push the school forward and grow the departments and make it way more competitive, or way, just forget about the competition, but way more
Attractive.
successful at facilities from a scientific standpoint and laboratories and materials. That shit is expensive. It's not easy to put on a fucking university. It takes money. So once again, you keep saying I understand their feelings, and I guess I understand their feelings too, but your feelings are irrelevant because you haven't gone through what I would think is a natural exercise of trying to truly understand the context of your situation. Like, you're just looking to fucking blame somebody instead of looking in the mirror to figure out, wait, what are all these other, like, it'd be different if black kids couldn't go to white colleges. That would be a different situation. I wouldn't feel the way I feel right now if black kids couldn't go to white schools. I wouldn't. Because they would have a point of, wait, what the fuck is going on here? Because we know that if we go to a predominantly white school, there's a chance that they're going to cater to their perspective and their history. Just like in Texas, they're fucking literally changing history books. Because racism is still fucking real. I'm not naive and stupid. Racism is real, and there's a very large proportion of white people in this country who are evil, maniac bastards who really want to do black people harm. I get it.
What was the wording change that's being proposed?
Say that again.
What was the wording change that was being proposed?
It
was like involuntarily transported, or it was crazy.
Bro. First of all, that's now. We're talking about, this has been going on for about 10 years.
Agreed. I thought you were referencing the one that just made the headlines. Yeah.
I mean, I'm referencing all of it. It doesn't fucking matter if I'm referencing that or just the past. Like, they are trying to change words. They literally minimize the number of pages that relate to slavery or explain it. You know that this whole Civil War thing, it's not about whether black people are humans or not. It's whether or not states have the right to defend themselves and blah, blah, blah. Like, all of that is subterfuge for, bro, let's trick these black people into thinking that there is no racism so we can keep on racism. But anyway, so my whole thing with, these students, or even that professor saying the whole thing about, there is no This needs to be a safe space and all that stuff. Once again, she was given, I think, the time and energy to explain it. She, I think, decided not to go into it. The students may have been given that, opportunity, but Vice didn't show it. But what I will say is, I have not heard any good explanation for why, white kids can't go to HBCUs, especially in the situation where most HBCUs are not fucking filled to the brim with students. They're just not. Like, I know people who've gone to HBCUs over the last 20 years, and like Hampton, I don't know about crowded, but they have a really strong, population. Howard, some of the bigger schools, but there are a whole bunch of smaller schools that are not thriving and have a ton of students coming in and taking advantage of the situation. Because you got people like me who just didn't go to HBCU for whatever reason, and so to ignore the fact that there are literally hundreds of thousands of black kids going to college, doing great things, but they're doing great things at other schools. So you have to be able to take that into context and be including that in your rationale when you come up with this whole rationale of, oh, white people shouldn't be here. Well, should black people be at white schools or no? Because once again, you have to explain how it diminishes your ability to educate yourselves or to feel comfortable. Like, that goes back to what I was saying before. Your inability to feel comfortable in your own skin around white people, especially when black people control everything. Right? The reason you don't go to a white school or you think white schools aren't good for you is because the administration is predominantly white. And the students are predominantly white. So you don't want to be there. So what the fuck is the problem when you go to a predominantly black administration where almost 97% of the students are black and you still have a problem with a half speckled dude walking in there? What is he going to do? And even if you have this whole thing of, well, yeah, it's one person now, but in 15 years, it's going to be 500 people. And in 30 years, it's going to be 5,000. Okay, but are they stopping black people from coming here? And why are the black people who are here not able to assert themselves and their culture in such a way? Because even if we take away the fact that Tiago is white, I guarantee you that there are black kids who come up in there who aren't really down for the culture, right? They're going to Morehouse because of their skin color, and maybe Morehouse is a big deal, or maybe Morehouse just has the program that is really going to help them in their career, but they're not quote unquote pro-black. You're assuming that every person who comes in there that has brown skin or is whatever the fuck you people call black is going to be down for the culture, is going to bring some positivity to that environment. And that's not fucking true.